it was the it was it was that occurred, that happened, that prepared, that created, that organized everything. And then when time came, then everything starts. You see, that was a deep philosophical concept. And in fact, on the walls of some of the temples, you will see this. Ed Fu will tell you this, that there was a time when there was this great battle between Set and Heru. This was during the Septepi. This is not in contemporary time. This was a time before time that they had this, you see. And there are stories of Alsa and Alset that exist before time began. Time begins when Heru takes the throne and becomes this king, you see, who is in charge. This Purah, the great house. Robert Bauval, who wrote the book Secret Chamber, before he and Brophy wrote their book Black Genesis, he argues that the ancient text proclaims, "Great is the Ma'at, enduring in its effectiveness, for it has not been changed since the time of Osa." This is the time of Osa, is the first time. That's a Septepi, you see, time before time. The first time, then when time really starts, it's the second time. But first time, Septepi, that's the time. This Ma'at existed. It endured. It has not been changed since that time. This, it really excites me to talk about this because it's the ideas that matter. You see, Sahara was not always desert. We know that. And you can't just think that that there were no civilizations before Kemet. There were, you see. And those civilizations influenced Kemet. Apollodorus, who lived in the first century before this era, said that Egypt was a country of black people. And he said that Egyptians captured the country of the black-footed ones and called it Egypt after himself. This was a Greek writing. This, of course, that's a Greek thing. But Kemet was what the people called it. Aristotle said, who was a disciple of Plato, in a naive way, showed that the Egyptians were black. He says those who are too black are cowards. This is what Aristotle wrote this in Physiognomonica. I remember it, reading it when I was a student. He says those who are too black are cowards, like, for instance, the Egyptians and the Ethiopians. But those who are excessively white are also cowards, as we can see from the example of women. The complexion of courage is between the two. So that's where he puts the white man. You see what I mean? That is naive, and stupid, but he's letting you know that the Egyptians and the Ethiopians are the same complexion. They're both black, and that Herodotus, of course, had also said that in the 5th century BC, because he says very interestingly that the people of Colchis were blacks, and that they were black because they had black skin and woolly hair, that they were Egyptians, he said, because they have black skin and woolly hair. And that some people told him, this is what Herodotus says, he says some people told him that they were the descendants, these Colchians were the descendants of the soldiers of Senusert. Senusert was the Purah, the Pharaoh general, who had led an army all the way over to the Black Sea. So I'm just saying to you that there's so much more to know than what Zahi Hawass will tell people. He will not tell people the information that is necessary for them to have an understanding of anything about life. The ritual of initiation, the whole notion of libation, Kimani Nehusi, one of my colleagues, talks about it in his book, Libation, an African Ritual of Heritage in the Circle of Life. If you don't have that book, you ought to get that book. An African Ritual of Heritage in the Circle of Life. That libation goes all the way back. This ritual of initiation is all over Africa. All people do it. all the communities. And all communities strive to achieve the ultimate good and truth. That's the African concept. That's the Maatic concept. Nadav, another colleague of mine, talks about Maaticity. The notion of trying that to be human is to live truth, righteousness, justice, order, harmony, balance, and reciprocity. Ma'at. And so that's Maaticity. We strive for Maaticity. The Africans talked about the doctrine of transmigration of the soul and reincarnation. This was talked about by Africans before anybody in the world. The concept of the God King or the God Queen, that was African. This was, and also a couple of other things. The idea of aspiring for great good, because if you are good, you're looking for health and wealth and long life, and goodness is what helps bring all this thing. And you see this every day. I mean, the Yoruba culture believes in this very deeply. That to be good, you will have health, wealth. And you have to also have some understanding about the fact that if Africans had not been enslaved by the Arabs first and then by the Europeans, you would not have people who will be trying to sideline Africa in its own classical civilization. That is the craziest thing in the world, it seems to me. But that is exactly what Zahi Hawass and many of his colleagues who have attacked me and Obenga and Sheikh Anta Diop in the newspapers. I've read it recently last year, about this whole question of Kemet. He will not speak about Imhotep. He will not tell you about the first queens in the world, Sobek Nefru and Hatshepsut. They were black. He won't tell you that. And I'm saying all of this to tell you that this guy is responsible for trying to kneecap African culture and history at every turn. Like the Bennu bird that the Greeks call the phoenix, the Bennu, Bennu, the Bennu. The Greeks, again, I told you about renaming, they call it Phoenix. And so we got a city in Arizona called Phoenix, but it's actually an African word, African concept, the Bennu. The